Hello, leaders. Welcome to the Center for Legacy Driven Leadership's Mentoring Leadership video series. I am your host, Dr. Shante Scroggins, and I'm excited to have you back with us for, are you ready? The Creatives Edition. You all already know it is about to be bananas. We have 3 guests. This time, we're trying something new. We've had 2 guests, and now we have the dynamic trio. So we're going to bring them all on in turn, but I hope you all are ready. I wanted to make sure we had the fashion industry represented, whether or not mentoring exists there, what it looks like, talking to people who collectively have over 60 years of experience in this industry. So we're not talking to people who just got started on fashion on Project Runway. We're talking about people who came in the hard way and have some good wisdom to share with all of you who are aspiring or are really kind of crawling on glass right now and making your way in the fashion industry. The Center for Legacy Driven Leadership lights the way toward leadership succession. And we do this through leader development training and curriculum design. And our goal in this video series is just to put out there one big thought that mentoring is leadership and leadership is everywhere. All right. So you all, I hope you are inspired by our guests. I hope that if you know someone who is trying to break through into the fashion industry, that you will share this video and make sure that they get this experience, get this knowledge in front of them so that maybe they'll hear something that will be a positive change to their career. As with our other guests, I know these people and I am excited to bring them on in turn. So I guess we will start with the most unpredictable, and that would be the consummate creative, Mr. Brian Evans. Thank you, Brian.
All righty. Hey, how's everybody doing? Thank you for having me here.
I'm so excited to have this formal discussion with you. You all, I've had a chance to observe Brian's expertise. He's actually put his hands on some of my garments since I was in grade school. Jeez, it's been a long time, dude. And I've aged, you have not, just for the record. Okay. So let's start with this question. Take us to the beginning. How did you get into working in the fashion industry? Was this always a dream?
No, actually, the dream was to be a actor, singer, dancer, Broadway person, and then I went to the arts magnet in high school and realized that I stank as an actor, right? And then later on, I figured out just it wasn't the right roles that were presented to me. But then during classes or instruction for theater, we had a costuming class, history of costume, which was really amazing, where we got to study all of the different eras of fashion and actually reflect on them as we see them today. And so that just kind of led the forward motion. My mom was a fashion person. My grandmother sewed everything. She did everything. And so I think that was just kind of like the saplings from the tree that kind of grew inside me. I went on to change schools. I went to Skyline High School and got into the fashion program there, which was really fun. We learned the basics of pattern making and sewing and being as creative as possible. Then after that, I wanted to move to New York and do fashion there. But my dad said, well, you need to figure that out here. And so I went to North Texas State, which was more of an art program basis for fashion design. And that really wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to know how to sew and make patterns. So then I went to Miss Wade's Fashion College for a semester and realized that someone who was very mentory to me, like Martin Ames and Dee Morrison, both designers here in Dallas, who were trend setting, said, man, you're doing all this other stuff. You just need to go to El Centro and learn how to make patterns.
Mm,
And so then I went to El Centro, and it was a wonderful experience. I learned so much. I was young then, kind of stupid, but I learned a lot. I was very, very creative, and it was supported. I wanted to get a job in the industry because I didn't think that a degree would be my ticket in other than my creativity.
mm,
So I left school and I got a job in the industry, cutting samples and then making patterns and then assistant designer and then designer, which was the pinnacle point, what I was trying to do. And it was a fun journey. I appreciated it. And but looking back now, I really wish I had finished my degree when I had the opportunity, because once you have the paper, that's it. You can't take that away,
mm-hmm,
and it documents your progress. However,
mm-hmm,
I am very fabulous and my work speaks for itself, but when you go to other cities and states,
mm-hmm.
they kind of look for that. And so that's kind of how I got to the fashion thing. I was a bad actor, and then I realized I like making dresses, and so here
Well,
we
then, on the road to fabulous, then you mentioned two names who made the suggestion. You're doing all this stuff. Let's go to El Centro, which for all of our viewers is a wonderful plug for the junior college. That you can find some wonderful programs at the
exactly.
JUCO. But along the road to fabulous, because what I did not hear you mention was the couture and all of the wonderful things that you have
Well,
put your hands on.
Martin Ames, black designer here in Dallas at the time, that's all he did was fabulous couture things, hand beading and hand ruching and all of these kinds of things. And it was the top of where we had, of what we had fashion wise, couturier in Dallas. There was another guy who I worked for, Jay Jacks, who had a couturier studio, and ladies would come in and get dresses for the Emerald Ball and things like that. I loved all of this energy. Never really thought of myself as a menswear designer, but I've gotten some mentoring advice from Dee Morrison, who was another black designer here in Dallas. He and Martin actually knew each other, but Dee did menswear, and he's the only menswear designer that I know that stretched the boundaries for men's clothing.
Mm,
Capes and joffers and leathers and all of these kinds of fun things created in a very sexy, stylized way, and so that was always inspiring to me that they did that. So that's kind of how I got into couture. And then once I started at about 18, I was always trying to make something tight and sequin and sparkly, and was accused of being a call girl in a past lifestyle because I have a thing for rhinestones. Anyway,
Well,
but
let me ask you, because you mentioned these names, and I know that they were inspiring, but I did not hear you say that they were influential. When you were
oh,
carving out your own style, were they? Were
oh
they
my
in how
God, are
you?
you
Okay,
kidding? Yes, yes, very, very, very instrumental. Um, Martin Ames was doing exactly what I wanted to do.
okay.
He was making one of a kind, beautiful handmade gowns, or whatever the garment was, that was absolutely impeccable. You couldn't go to the store and find anything like that. And so that was what was special about what he did, and I was very influenced by that, because all I really want to do is one of a kind things, and things that nobody else has. I'm still stuck there. I don't think it's a bad place. Mass marketing and mass merchandising and mass production is everything, in terms of money. But if you're interested in being fulfilled because of your creativity, then sometimes you decide to do a different road, and maybe it is all that you do is one of a kinds, and that's the light of your life.
Oh, that's awesome. I am going to pause you right here and thank you
Thank you.
for giving us this insight. Y'all, I wish I had this skill. Sometimes you just wish you could do everything, but you just have to pick the one or two things you're amazing at and then stay in your lane. So that's what I'm going to do, and just appreciate you.
Thank you.
From over here, you all, this is Brian Evans, the consummate creative. Expert in all mediums. This would be Brian Evans. So thank you very much. Cue the applause.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll see y'all again.
All right, y'all. Are you inspired yet? You should be. Now, I am going to bring on the girl power in this trio. And I mean, I've known her a little bit. I've known her a while. Just a little bit. So I'm bringing her on. This is my sister, like my actual blood sister, y'all. So this is Pamela. She was taken from us, which is why you see a different last name there. So this is Pamela Nanton, expert in the fashion field. And by way of introduction, I will say that there was, I'll tell this story about how I knew my sister was amazing at this. And this is not necessarily related to what she does now, but this was my first experience. She was a mannequin. She used to be a mannequin, right? And this was in back at the local malls when aspiring models and breaking through would pose as mannequins in storefront windows where your Neiman Marcus's, where you actually have fake people who are dressed up. They would have real people dressed up. And Pam was a mannequin, and Mama wanted to shop in the mall, and I had to be 6 or 7, probably. And I remember standing at the window trying to make her blink. You remember this?
Yes, I do.
I was tapping on the window trying. I was like, Mama, look, she about to blink. She about to blink. She's about to. And she couldn't. She held character. She's trying not to laugh and held character. And then she was even featured in this magazine that was published by the local mall. And from there was college, there was design, there was all this fancy schmancy stuff. And so I wanted to bring her on to talk about how she got into the fashion field. Our mother had a little bit to do with it. Just a little bit to do with it. And so you get the same question. Take us back to the beginning and kind of track us through your career in fashion.
Well, I love your introduction, and I love your memory of it. And I do remember doing that in the mall, and I did have it in my notes to talk about how exciting it was in fashion for me, and how you, as my little sister, when you were with Wendy Ward, and how I liked dressing you, and how I liked making sure the ribbon, all 8 of them in your ponytail was tied nicely and bowed up, and all your ruffle stuff, and Mama would make us dress alike sometimes. But it's interesting. I tell the story often. I was either 10, 11, or 12. So I remember Mama had a Sears Kenmore sewing machine. Yeah, it was Kenmore machine from Sears. And she was about to give it to one of our aunts. And I was like, Mama, I want to sew. And Mama was like, you've never expressed that interest. Expressing it now. I want to sew. So started sewing. I made what's called a sandwich board shirt. It's one rectangle in the front, one in the back. It has ties on the shoulder. It has slits. That's it. I made a whole bunch of them. My mom was like, okay, you're going to need to make something else. So that progressed. And of course, there was the McCall's patterns, the Butterick patterns. And Vogue got in touch for a few years. And So I'm probably 13, early teens by this time, and wanted to do more. I remember making an orange canvas type cotton fabric skirt, split in the front, split in the back, 2 pockets in the back, 2 pockets in the front, zipper and waistband. I wish I still had that. So in thinking about that, like I can do this, but then now I'm probably 14, I got little curves. I was like, okay, the stuff that mama buys me is always something. It's always something's too tight and somewhere, something's too big somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And mama, I believe it was Neiman's where she worked when I was like 3 or 4 or 2 or something like that. So her love of fashion and love of clothes, and mama just has a presence about her. She could put on a paper sack and a hat and a tie belt, be like, oh, that's cute, I want one. So I'm shorter, and now I got a little curves and just still kind of awkward a little bit. So at this stage, I'm still doing more of the modeling when there was an opportunity, and wanted the clothes to fit me better. So now I'm paying attention to how can I take this tissue piece of paper that they're saying is a skirt, and based on their measurements, I don't know, probably when I was 13, based on a buttery pattern, it said I was a size 16. So It was crazy. And it's like, I'm not, because I'm always in the mall, remember, with mama. Like, well, they say I wear a 6 or 8 or whatever it was at that time. So I started paying attention to darts. I started paying attention to princess seams and kind of building like the Lego of apparel, if you will, to try to make stuff fit my body better. So by the time high school came around, I thought I wanted to be in fashion merchandising, and I went to the Business Magnet downtown Dallas. And in going to the magnet schools, it was like, ooh, we're special. It's just a few of us. It's not as big as the regular high school. And I'm focused. I have an instructor that cares about me and what I care about. Well, after thinking about merch, I was like, I love math, but I'm just really trying to look at a ruler or a tape measure, y'all. So I was like, I want to go to Skyline. Skyline was the it place. They had all these clusters. Whatever you thought you wanted to learn, that's where you went. So I went to Skyline, and I had a very tough instructor. Her name was Maida Richard. Often when she comes to mind, I try to search for her, but she was kind of older back. I guess all of our teachers were old back then. But Maida Richard was a very tough Russian, German instructor. The wooden rulers with the little metal strip. We would get popped. So this is 1982. So we would get popped if we made mistakes. She was very meticulous. She really worked with me, but I think I had an advantage going in because I knew how to sew, and a lot of the other students did not. I had a sense of fashion, little bit of, I knew how to carry myself because of mama, and I had gone to some etiquette class or something, book on your head, learning how to walk and all that. So I think I brought something different to the table. So it was like, ooh, everybody else is gone, or, ooh, she's letting us leave early. I'm going to stay. I'm going to work with her. So she really mentored me, but I don't think that was her intent to mentor me. I think she just wanted to help me, because if I saw somebody that was struggling, I was like, oh, I can help you. So I kind of tried my best to go above and beyond. And anything that I did do, the parents were strict. It's like, do your best, oh, you don't get it. Oh, you didn't get an A. Why didn't you get an A? What did you tell her you didn't understand? And was like, I just didn't get an A. Nope, not good enough. So, having to, dot that I and cross that T and not have an excuse. So she was very instrumental. And like I said earlier, I think of her often. So once I graduated from high school, I was like, okay, I think I want to do this fashion thing. So, and it's interesting because I had friends that went to El Centro, but in my circle, nobody wanted to do fashion like that. So I had an amazing counselor. My counselor, I hope I'm saying this right. I think my counselor was mama's counselor at Sky. She was my counselor at Skyline, but she was mama's counselor somewhere else, or they knew each other or something.
Oh,
so
wow.
There was that line and connection, like, okay, watch her. That's mine, that type of thing. So, oh, I'm so mad I can't think of her name, but she was very instrumental in helping me find a college. So I came across Blotter Fashion College. It's a 2-year college. I don't have a lot of patience. I'm not trying to do anything a long time. Haven't done much for a long time, period. So I'm like, okay, associate applied arts degree, and they offer modeling. So my minor degree is in modeling, and my major was fashion design. It was a 2-year program. But for my other friends in college going to university, they were like, girl, we off on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or we get off every day at 2. No, I go to school Monday through Friday, and I'm out at 5. I was like, okay, boo, whose idea was this? But it was so amazing. I remember my classes being no more than 15 students. So, I mean, I took my basics. I took my, my English, my math, and that type of stuff. But my majority of my classes were focused around fashion, whether it's pattern making, a little bit of draping, all of the books. But it was more about me learning my body and how to fit me so that I could then in return fit other people. And all of those instructors were pretty instrumental. I do remember Mrs. Juergens, who I did not like, but she made sure to stay on me because I did not like to sketch. I can sketch now to where it doesn't look like a stick figure, but I was like, this isn't what I want to do. This isn't what I do. But she taught me that I needed to tell my story, and it starts with pen and paper. I need to tell you this is what I want to make and then get to the fabric. So she was really helpful for me. And after college, 1987 was when I graduated, 2-year college, remember? And this is all I've ever done. So I'm in my 34th year now of always being in the fashion industry. And I've done anything from sample making, sewing, measuring, grading. I haven't done a lot of draping. And I actually worked at a company called Leslie Lux in Dallas, and Brian Evans was my boss at one point. So Brian was my boss at one point. So it was really interesting because Brian was just so fabulous. And then I had Kanani Mahalona, who taught pattern making through Gerber. So it's a software system on the computer. So I'm like, computer, this is the 90s. What's happening? I'm learning something through a black box. But Kanani's level of detail and patience, and his goal is wanting to teach. And he's still to this day, he's such an amazing friend. And then Brian, who never professed to love sewing. He loves the end result, but the process was never really him. I liked the process, but my finished project was not always the most fabulous. So I had these two people that were very instrumental in my life. And so when me and Brian would be together, I would get the thing started and he would get the thing finished. So we worked together many times on many projects. And it's interesting today that I'm currently not doing my own label as of recently, but to the right of me is a almost floor to ceiling inspiration board with just different things that I love. So it's not out of me yet. And I know something else is going to happen, but I feel like the people that influence me now are more social, just looking at what other designers and other brands have done. But everybody that kind of piques my interest, if you will, gets me excited is not necessarily in my own field these days. And it's interesting in growing up and just trying to stay focused, and God bless my parents. I changed so many jobs. I was like, nope, nope, this ain't the place. They don't have my vision in mind. They not trying to understand I want to be a designer. I need to go to another job. But I feel like now just that always looking, always wanting, and there's just that thump of trying to find the next thing has always kind of been in me. So I hope I answered the question.
You did. And I want to point out in our wrap up, I want to point out 4 things that you said that apply to the person breaking into the fashion industry and apply broadly. First, you mentioned you had to, while at Barter, you had to learn your own body, your own shape, so that you'd be able to work well with others. It says a whole lot about, we could call it self-awareness, we could call it the product of reflection, but coming into a sense of identity in a way that helps us relate to others. The second thing was, I don't want to sketch. Y'all, leaders, viewers, I'm going back to a line from the great debaters that sometimes you do what you have to do so you can do what you want to do. And so sometimes it just pays to learn the skill. Whether or not we use it, there's a discipline, there's a reward there in the discipline. The third thing was in discussing Kanani and Brian, there's this idea of the type of mentors that we have. Some people who mentor on the technique, some people who mentor for a piece of the process. Sometimes we look for mentors to be a one-stop shop, but they are not. Sometimes they pop in different parts of the process. And then the last thing you mentioned regarding your vision board and the differences in inspiration these days speak to the transitions in a career path, transitions that allow mentors to drop in and out of our lives along the path. And leaders, viewers, I hope that we're catching this, that we can transition in inspiration, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's a call to a new career. It can be confusing. It can be, it can seem like a mixed signal that, hey, I'm inspired by this and this and this, and none of this is in my field. So maybe it's time to change course. Maybe not. Maybe it's just that we are becoming broader. We're becoming more diverse and so more flexible, even so that we're able to take in inspiration from other areas.
I think with the word transition, it makes me think about the different roles that I've had in the jobs. And because fashion is not just, I'm a designer, I'm a pattern maker. And because I've been doing it 3 decades plus 4, I couldn't just make patterns because the world said, we're going to get rid of paper. The world said, you need to learn how to make patterns on this thing, and thinking about 3D and avatars and pattern making through a file and making pattern changes on a computer. So I had to always want to learn. And in order to do that, I needed to find a professional. And I do think, as much as I love, and never would have thought I would leave my home, and very close-knit with my family, love my family. And we were always there. I never would have thought I would leave Dallas, Texas, but I had to for the sake of my career, because when I left my last job in 2001 in Dallas, I was like, there's no other jobs. It's 2001. I've been doing this since 1987. I've worked at them all. So, so that transition and that process is still going, because I realized that I had to now learn technology. So now I'm on the hunt for mentors in the technology field, and never, ever did I think that that's what I would be looking into. So now some of my things that I'm following, let's see what Apple's doing. Granted, that's because my husband is the IT guru of them all and happens to be an expert in fashion, and he's amazing. But I am learning and trying to be a little bit more piqued in my interest that it's not just about the clothing. It is beyond the pattern.
Oh, that belongs on a shirt. Thank you, Pamela Nanton, expert in the fashion field, sister of my 4 years. And we thank you. We're going to take you off screen to have a break. Y'all, I hope you're taking this in. Fashion, people to be fashion people, breaking through, aspiring people. Take note. Thank you very much. Cue the applause.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Y'all, this is so good. And I'm totally not a fashion person. Totally not. But I'm so enjoying this. But these people are wonderful and they make it enjoyable. Bringing on, last but not least, the designer and my Bill, Bil, as in brother in love. This is the Lamarr Nanton in the nation that is Lamarr. So, welcome, brother.
Hi, Sil. How you doing?
Thank you for being with us, for making some time. And you get the same question. Start us at the top. How did you come into the fashion industry?
Well, okay, so I'm the youngest of seven, and my family is pretty well educated, well, smart, really smart, and I wasn't the smartest of them. And they
I don't
also
believe that. Wait. Okay, keep going. Okay.
and they're also very talented in like art and just like very creative. And I'm not the best of those in that category either. So I always was trying to look for something that could be mine or that's something that I could shine at. Um, so at that time, I was really involved in music. So I had been playing music since I was, what, 4 years old. So that was kind of the thing that was like, oh, okay, yeah, but it wasn't something that I felt like I could do a career in. So it was at that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to do law. I'm going to do corporate law. That was my thing. So I was doing debate. I was at the debate club. I was at the history club, the science club, math league, National Honor Society, just like anything
Y'all, I'm having a whole
competition-wise.
revelation right now. The fact that you said debate makes a whole lot of sense. Keep going. Go ahead.
So that was my life at the time. So you know, my mom really was pushing me to be in education because that's what my dad did. And we got into a fight, got into an argument. I went upstairs, and as I normally do, I would sketch when I get upset. So I didn't know what to sketch at the time, so I went through her closet, found a Vogue pattern, and I started to sketch the picture of the dresses on there. And as I was sketching it, I was making changes to it. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna move this and change this and do this new shape. And then I was like, I think I can make this. So again, another trip to her closet, find some fabric, cut it out, sew it up. And then when she finally saw what I had done, she was like, okay, well, great that you could do that and a good attempt. Then she started to tell me like, okay, well, you need darts and you need these kind of things to shape around the body because what I made was like completely flat.
Mm.
So my mom was really instrumental in that. So she kept teaching me how to sew, and then what I couldn't learn from her, I learned from books. So I would go to the library, check out like classic tailoring books and the art of the dress and like how to make all these pieces. And that's how I kind of got into that. And I started making prom dresses in high school. And then I had to decide as I was getting into college, like, what am I going to do? So, and still at this point, I hadn't like fully committed to the fashion thing. Because my mom was like, how are you going to make a living in fashion? That's like trying to make a living as an artist. It's like, impossible. So you need to have something to fall back on.
Mm-hmm.
So my backup plan was to continue my education and my direction in law. So I chose a school that had both the excellent law program, because really and truly it wasn't about the fashion, and a fashion program. Because otherwise I would have been like, I need an excellent fashion program and maybe a school in the neighborhood
Right.
that did law. But it was all about like a great law school and they have a fashion program. And I can dip my toe in that for a little bit and see if it works out. And if not, I can just jump back into law.
Mm-hmm. So anybody come along on the path to give some support? I mean, you had some resistance from your mom. You say you are the least creative of all your siblings, which is so hard to believe. But did anybody else come along? Anybody who pushed you? Anybody who mentored once you got into fashion? Anybody who opened the door, or
Oh,
did you bust through them all?
so many
Okay.
of those. Well, I ended up leaving school before I graduated, primarily because I had an instructor that told me if I could get a job in the fashion industry, then why was I here at school? So I got a job and I left. Um, but I probably the most influential person in my career, like starting out, was uh, I I walked into a job interview off the street, saved up enough money, moved to New York, and I had this horrible pistachio green wool crepe suit that I had made with these with these cream nubuck shoes. It was horrible, horrible. And I walked into the Giorgio Armani corporate office in New York.
Okay, wait, y'all. I just have to tell you that he is our family Johnny Cash. Like, this is the man in black. So I cannot believe this pistachio green suit store right here. Okay.
But now you understand why I'm the man in black. I spent all my color chips on that one suit. It was horrible. It was horrible.
Gosh, so you walked in and wowed him right off the street.
I must have, because I didn't have an appointment, didn't have anything. I asked them if they were hiring for any positions, and they told me to wait here for a minute. They were going to bring this guy out to talk to me, and out comes this guy, the slickest, sharpest looking guy you've ever seen in your life, just like suited up, Armani suit, like hair pulled back in a ponytail, all slick. And I was like, dang, he looks good. And we had a conversation and he hired me.
Wow. And so you have how many years in?
I am year 28 now, I think. Yeah.
Y'all are committed.
You know, the best part about that story is that we're still friends to this day. But also that he knew that I really wanted to be in design. And so he said, okay, you're not going to get that here at one point. So I came into work and he handed me a stack of papers. He goes, these are the interviews I set up for you today. You're not going to be in the office, go interview, find a job.
Wow.
And I mean, basically just pushed me out the nest. But it was great. And then, you know, I had another lady that was influential, and we just met because he had set up an interview with her. And I went in, interviewed with her. Her name was Spider. That's the only thing I know about her. Don't remember the name of the company.
Her name was what?
Spider.
As in Itsy Bitsy.
Yeah, as in Itsy Bitsy. And
okay.
I haven't found her ever since. But I went in and interviewed with her, and you know, I thought that my shit was the bomb. You know, like it's all put together. I have all these fabulous designs and stuff. And she's like, "Yeah, you're very creative, but I can't hire you from your book because your book is a mess." She's like, you know, it's just a bunch of random ideas and thoughts. It's like it doesn't give me any insight into how you think and how you design and how you go through the whole process. And so she took me through my book and showed me like how it should be set up in order for me to get a job.
That's priceless.
Yeah. And I went back, I made those corrections, and the next job interview I went on, I got the job. And that was my first design assistant job at Côte de France.
Wow, we've got a combination of Molly Ringwald and Pursuit of Happiness and Trading Places. There's just a whole combination of movie wonder between the three of you. Thank you so much for telling us about your journey. I'm so excited. And this is not all, y'all. We're going to bring them all back. Get ready. We're going to bring them all back together to answer another question. But I thank you, Bill, for coming on.
Oh, thank you, Doctor.
Cue the applause. All right.